In 1897, my great-great-grandmother and 4 of her classmates made matching dimity gowns to celebrate their college graduation. Over the last few months, I have been analyzing, drafting, and digitizing the pieces that make up both the skirt and the bodice of this dress. And today, we're starting part 1 of 2 of the Alice Dress tutorial series. Since the skirt is much simpler than the bodice, we're beginning with that, and I'll be releasing the bodice tutorial in a couple of months. I drafted the pattern for this skirt from scratch based on the original dress, and I've digitized it into a customizable, size-inclusive pattern on my web app, Drafting Dynamically. You'll find the link to that in the description, along with a page on my website that lists all of the instructions in case you want a written reference. I won't be going into deep detail about every sewing technique here. For example, I'm not going to explain how to do cartridge pleats, but I will walk you through each step I used to get to the final swirly 1890s skirt. First, follow the link below to find the Alice Dress skirt pattern. Input your waist and skirt length measurements. I recommend printing out the drafting instructions rather than trying to print out and scale up the image, since this is a very large pattern. Once you've drafted it out, cut out all the pieces. Keep the fabric stripes running vertically, and make sure the front and back panels are cut on the fold. You should need 1 each of the front and back panels and 2 side panels. You'll also need 3 additional pieces. The waistband. This needs to be 2 inches larger than your waist measure and 1 5/8 inch wide. Cut 2 from your fashion fabric, or you can cut 1 on the fold, and 1 from interfacing. If your fabric is thin or delicate, add another layer of interfacing or a solid cotton. There was a lot of damage on the original waistband, so I highly recommend adding extra support so you don't face the same problem. The placket is 16 inches long and 1 1/4 inches wide. Again, this can be cut on a fold, or you can cut 2 individually if you would prefer to do that. Once this placket is folded in half lengthwise, it will create an 8-inch opening. If you feel like you're going to need more room, you can make it a little bit longer. 1/2 of the placket will be cartridge pleated into the waistband along with the part of the back panel of the skirt, so it's not necessary to use interfacing in this area because that would add a lot of extra thickness to the waistband, which we do not want. The hem support is 8 inches wide and as long as your hem, which is about 5.2 times your waist. Use a lightweight but stiff cotton. This protects the hem from ripping, keeps it from warping over time, and adds a little extra stiffness to support the fullness of the skirt. With this lightweight dimity, cotton is enough. Stiffer materials like horsehair would change the drape a bit too much. By the way, all of the patterns in Drafting Dynamically are designed to have the edges of the pattern be the seam lines, so make sure that you cut a bit outside of that pattern to allow for seam allowance. To add the placket, start with a line of stitches about 1/8 of an inch from either side of center back, about 7.5 inches long. This stabilizes the fabric before you cut it. Line up the middle of the placket with the lowest point of that line and baste one side in place. Slice along the line, then finish basting in the placket. Stitch the placket in place from the right side, leaving one edge open. Press it, then top stitch close to the edge. Stitch along the waistband on the side that's pressed behind the skirt panel. Finally, pin the placket closed so it doesn't warp while you work on the rest of the skirt. Now, sew the skirt panels together along all of the long sides. I used French seams to protect the raw edges of the fabric. However, in this time period, it was quite common to just leave these seams raw or pinked. Now, cartridge pleat the back panels and about 4 to 6 inches of the side panels into 1/16 of your waist measurement on each side. These pleats should be about 1/4 inch deep or less, and they are very tightly gathered. The rest of the skirt gets gathered evenly into the waistband. I recommend basting the gathers before sewing the waistband down by machine. Once that's in place, top stitch the waistband on all sides. This helps flatten everything, especially the thick cartridge pleats. If you're working with thicker fabric, switch to a heavy-duty needle here. For the hem support, fold and press a 1/2 inch seam along one long edge. This will be the top of the support panel, and it will sit about 8 inches up from the hem. Sew the hem support to the bottom of the skirt, right sides together, then press the seam up so that the edge of the fashion fabric tucks neatly to the inside. That way, the lining fabric doesn't peek out. Finally, top stitch along the top edge of the hem support. Again, this will be about 8 inches up from the lowest point of the skirt. And that's it! The skirt is finished. You should now have a beautiful swishy base ready for the Alice dress bodice, which I will cover in part 2 in a couple of months once I have actually made the bodice. Thank you so much for following along with this project. I am so happy with how it turned out. Even though my fabric doesn't match the original perfectly, I still love how full and swishy it is. This pattern may be relatively simple without ruffles or lace, but the delicate pleats and soft angles make an elegant cloud of cotton swirling around me. Don't forget to check the links in the description for the drafting dynamically pattern and the step-by-step instructions on my website, and keep an eye out for the bodice tutorial, which will be coming in a couple of months. As always, if you'd like to help support this channel, you can become a patron by following the link in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.